Hi everyone, today's day 4 on your Mojo month, so everybody should be feeling about 4 days into a great month of happiness. Today I'm going to give you a few tips so that you can get more out of your core while working out in your group reformer classes or your private training. So I'm on the reformer and I'm going to go over a few little things that I remind myself while I'm doing my workout. So make sure that you continue to have your pelvis in neutral. And you want to make sure that your hips are in place and you're thinking that you have a glass of water or a CD on your pelvic floor and it's not going to tip back or forward. Of course, your instructor might give you some tips depending on your own modifications, but I'm going to go over things that I remind myself. So when I round up in my classes, I always make sure to kind of look and see what's going on here. If I'm starting to pooch and my belly's coming up like this, then I'm using too much rectus abdominis, so I want to pull that back in. But I also watch to make sure my hips are in the right place, to make sure I'm not tucking, and to make sure that my pelvis is stabilized during my exercise. Also, when I'm working out, whether I'm in arms and straps or legs and straps, when I'm rounding up and rounding back down, I make sure even when I'm doing mat exercises or warm-ups, I make sure that my rib cage doesn't move. So rib cage down, rib cage up, rib cage down. That's not utilizing my upper abdominals. So I want to make sure that my rib cage is nice and closed and compact and it's not doing too much up and down. So work on that at home, and then when you come into class, try it out. So you're here, and then when you round up, your rib cage is down, and now work to keep it there. Sometimes a nice test is, okay, how long can I keep my rib cage down as my arms come up? So again, if you're moving up and down here, just try to minimize that as you continue your workout until when you're rounding up and when you're rounding down, your rib cage is staying in the same position. And then another modification that I do, I run a lot, so my hamstrings get a little bit tight. Another modification that I do is when I extend my legs, sometimes I don't extend them all the way out. So for instance, in your normal 100 position, you might take a nice exhale as you're coming out and extend your legs completely. However, if that makes you pop open or that makes you tuck too much, you don't have to extend all the way out. Go with what you're feeling that day. So if I went for a run over the weekend or a long jog, or I did something where my hamstrings are really tight, if I extend out, it's definitely going to move my pelvis out of a good position. So I'm going to take into effect how my body feels that day. So this day, if I'm really tight in my hamstrings, I might just extend a little bit, coming up and down, just making my own modification, because when I look down, I can maintain my core stabilization, where if I went all the way out because I'm pushing my ego, I might tip too much. So again, modify yourself accordingly to your body type and what you've been doing. If you've been doing, possibly you've been practicing yoga or you've been practicing a lot of stretching lately, you might have that extra extension, maybe for a day or two, and then maybe you've tightened back up, maybe you're stressed at work. So again, make sure that you're modifying your body for that day and how you feel. So another tip of the day is also to make sure that everything's in alignment, and I count through all of the things I want to make sure. So rounding up, my pelvis is in a nice stable position, my hips seem in a line, my rib cage is nice and down against the mat, and then I'm going to make sure that when I extend out, I'm not losing any position. So my shoulders are coming up, my back isn't tipping and popping, so you want to make sure that everything's in alignment. So take your time. You don't have to speed through each exercise. Make sure everything's there, and then come back down. And again, walk yourself through it. I'm rounding up. Look at yourself. Make sure everything's in position, and come back in. And again, make sure above all you're listening to your body, because your body knows what it needs. So take these tips with you for the rest of the month of May and enjoy our Mojo calendar.